Hi everyone, it's Christine here from Ever After Paper Crafts, and today I have a fun Halloween card to share with you. This is the card that we're going to be working on today. Let me pull it up here to the camera, and as you can see, it has a starry night sky background, which we're going to work on today, and I created that with my Gansai Tambi watercolor paints. And then we have these cute little dogs that you get to play paper doll dress up with, basically. It's such a fun stamp set from Fawn. I have some glitter, you can see it there. It's on the hat and the skirt, and then the pumpkin's not showing up as well, but there's Wink of Stella glitter pen on the little costumes that they're wearing. I also added some black Nuvo drops to the little eyes and nose of this puppy, and then just the nose of this one, and I really love how that turned out and really brought a lot of pop to those features on the doggy's face. I have used a frame die here to set the scene, and then of course we have the sentiment with a little paw heat embossed with white embossing powder. So I think what we'll start with is the background, and then we'll do some painting, and I'll also show you how I quickly emboss the little milk bones here on the little hillside. So let's go ahead and get started. This is the stamp set that we're using today, and forgive me, I haven't put it in its home stamp storage pocket yet, so it's just kind of sitting here. But this one is called Happy Howloween from Fawn, and I love this stamp set. Look at all the different costumes that you have available for your little puppy dogs. You have a cape, a superhero cape, or you could turn that into a king's cloak or something. You have little wings for a fairy, a little princess, or a ballerina. I mean, the mummy, the witch, the pumpkin, so cute. So definitely a must-have stamp set for me, and I love this one, the little hot dog that you could put on one of these two that's facing sideways. I love that. That is so cute. Okay, so let's set this aside, and what I'm going to do is, like I said, start with, before we do the background, let me just show you this very quickly. This is the die that I used to create the scene, and this is from Fawn. This is the portrait leafy tree backdrop, and I used this for the hillside at the bottom, and then of course the frame with the tree, and I just left it black for kind of a spooky Halloween feel. But that is the die that I used. And I have to say, while these dies have a little bit of a higher price point, I think Vanessa has this for maybe $25 at Butterfly Reflections, something like that. So it's a little higher of a price point, but it is so worth it. It makes scene building on your cards effortless. It really does. And in my opinion, well worth the cost. All right, let's go ahead and get started with our painting. So what I have done, let me put this card aside here. I've gone ahead and taped a piece of Canson XL watercolor paper to a hard board, and that's just to, I taped it down with some painter's tape, and this is just to kind of help reduce the warping that you get. Even though the paper is watercolor paper, it's still paper. So when you're working with watercolor paints, it can still warp, and that's why I have it taped down to a hard board here. You could use a clipboard, you could use a cutting board. Just look around your house for something that you can use, but I do recommend the blue painter's tape because it doesn't have a very strong tackiness to it, so it makes pulling it up a little bit easier. I also recommend, I always start when I'm watercoloring with the idea that I'm going to use the entirety of an A2 size card front, which is 5.5 by 4.25, and whatever size you want your panel to be, tape down an inch bigger on each side. So this is 6.25 by 5.25. Hopefully that makes sense. That just gives me a lot of room to accommodate for the tape and make sure that I still will have enough room for the size that I ultimately want this panel to be. Okay, so these are the watercolor paints that I'm using today. These are Gansai Tambi 36 palette watercolor paints, my absolute favorite. They're very forgiving and very perfect for novices like me who don't know anything about watercoloring and are just kind of winging this as we go. It is the perfect beginner set, if you will, for watercoloring, and I just love it. So I'm going to be doing the night sky background, but I'm going to be using 3 colors and then the black over it. If you've seen any of my other videos before, you know that I like to alter the different colors that I put on the background. But for today's card, I wanted to keep it a Halloween kind of theme. So I just used a green, purple, and orange, dried it, and then covered it with black. So let's go ahead and get started. This is going to be really quick. This is going to be the quick guide to doing a galaxy background, and I think you guys will love how quick and easy this turns out to be. So I'm taking some purple from the Gansai Tambi set, and if you wanted to follow along exactly with me, I'm using number 38. I'm putting some purple there, as you can see, just a big old circle of it. pardon me, I'm coming into my green now, which is number, whoops, I got my paint in the wrong section. I want number 55, which is a nice green here. And I'm going to put that down here, kind of go up. I'm not going to let my colors touch at this point because we don't want them to mix and kind of form that muddy kind of mess that they can happen when your paints are still wet. So I'm just kind of going right up to the purple, but not touching the purple, if that makes sense. And then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to grab my orange, which is number 33 in this palette, and I'm going to put the orange over here in this corner. And I'm just doing big circles today. You could certainly do a lot more colors with just smaller, you know, paints if you wanted, smaller blobs of paint, if you will. There are so many different ways to do this type of a background. The sky has no limit. I'm going to do a little bit of purple down here as well. This area is going to be covered by our little hillside, but we'll put some down anyway. Now I'm going to go ahead and hit this with my heat tool just to dry this. Before you apply the black to make the night sky, you definitely want to make sure that the color layer is completely dry. So of course, if you are working on this at home and you weren't in a rush, you could absolutely just let this air dry. But for me, since I don't want this video to last forever, I'm just going to hit it with my heat tool. You could also use a hairdryer if you don't have a heat tool at home. So I'm just getting this nice and dry. You do want to make sure that this is dry. That's very important because otherwise when you apply the black, it's not going to sit over top of these paints like we want it to. It would mix with them, and we don't want that. We want it to lay over top and kind of let these different colors show through underneath it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come into the number 20, which is the black, and I'm going to show you here. I'm going to get this nice and watered down. So I'm putting a lot of water from my paintbrush into this black ink. There we go. See how soupy that is? Hopefully that's showing up on camera. That's what you want. Now this looks like a mess, right? This looks ridiculous. You're probably thinking, what are you making? But this is where the magic happens. So you put your first big glop of black down, get some more black. Keep putting it down and pull it down from what you've already laid down. In other words, kind of stretch this out, if you will. Stretch out what you have laid down to kind of make it cover as far as it'll go. Hopefully that makes sense. Now we're going to get some more black and pull it down over here. See how I'm just laying this down right over top of our dry colored background. And you can already see those colors underneath this black paint. And when we dry it, they're really gonna pop through. All right, that looks good. I'm gonna dry this now completely. And once this is dry, you'll be able to see those really pretty colors underneath. The last step to creating the galaxy background is to add the stars. And before you add the stars, you also want this layer to be dry. Otherwise, the white paint from the stars will just kind of, again, mix with the underlying paints, and then they won't look like stars, they'll look like mud or something like that. So definitely want to make sure that this is completely dry before you add your stars. Now let me pull this up quickly here. You can see you have those colors underneath that black that are just kind of peeking through a little bit. And then when we add our paint, our white stars, it's really gonna peek through. Now there is a white paint down here at the bottom, and sometimes in my videos I have used that. It works great, but my favorite thing to do is to use just some cheap acrylic paint because it's really, really, really white. And we want our stars to be really white, of course. So I'm going to just put some of this acrylic paint onto a acrylic block. This is cheap, by the way. This is Craft Smart acrylic white paint. It's from Michael's. It costs 65 cents. So very, very affordable. I'm going to now kind of use this bigger brush that I was using to get this white paint nice and wet. Then I'm going to bring over a smaller brush to actually do the little technique to get the stars on the paper. And I'm using this smaller brush just because I don't want my stars to be all big and gloppy. I want them to be smaller and controlled. So now I have paint, as you can see, on the bottom here of the brush end of my paintbrush. And I'm just going to smack it against the background here that we have created. And here you can see the stars forming on the background. That easy. It is so easy to do this. And now you can see it's really looking like a night sky. I'm going to put a little bit more. You can do as few or as many stars as you want. It's really completely up to you. All right, so there we have it. There's our starry night sky background, and I just love it. So pretty, and you can still see those colors, and when this completely dries, it's gonna look even better. It's just such a pretty and easy technique to do. So now let's put these paints away here, and I'm going to go ahead and do just a little bit of coloring of the images. Let me bring the finished card back over so you can see. So what you would do once this dries, of course, is cut it down to size. And again, I wanted mine to be the entirety of the entire front of an A2 size card. So mine is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. So I cut it down and then placed the die, the frame tree die that I showed you earlier, and the little hill on top of the watercolor. So it would look like this. Before I taped all of that down on top of the watercolor panel, I did something I thought was kind of fun. I got the little bone. There are 2 different bones in the stamp set. I got the one that's filled in, and I grabbed my anti-static powder tool and just rubbed this over the little hillside here, because I'm going to be doing some heat embossing and make these little bones. I'm going to stamp 3 little bones and then emboss them with white embossing powder. And I just thought that would be a really cute little touch to just have them kind of on this hillside. The little doggies are, you know, collecting bones on Halloween, and I just thought it'd be super cute to have some kind of laying about. So I stamped 3 of them with my Versamark watermark stamp pad. This is my favorite for heat embossing. I'm going to bring over some white embossing powder. This just happens to be from Stampin' Up. You can use whatever you have in your stash. You just simply put the powder over where you stamped, and we use that anti-static powder tool to kind of help eliminate the powder going where we don't want it. It's not perfect though. Sometimes a little bit will get there. So always look at your image before you heat it, because sometimes, like I said, you might have a little speck of powder somewhere you don't want it, and you want to get that off with your fingernails before you heat set it. Now we're just going to heat set this with our heat tool very quickly. And you can see those little bones just kind of come to life there. So cute. So then I would put this behind, so cute. I would put this behind the frame here. And as you can see, that would then go on top of our watercolor Galaxy Night Sky whenever this is dry and we're ready to cut it. So that's kind of how I created the base of the card to build up our scene. Finally, I obviously did the coloring of the little images, and for that I did some watercolor painting. I've already stamped them onto some Canson XL watercolor paper with my favorite dye waterproof ink from Hero Arts, and I'm just going to color a couple of the little puppies for you very quickly. So for this little guy right here, I used dark brown and brown to color him. And he is going to be my little one that's coming, that has the pumpkin costume. So I wanted him to be a little bit darker so he would stand out with that big old pumpkin costume. So I'm just putting down my dark marker first. I have the light source coming from the left in my head, so I'm putting the majority of the shading, or the shadow if you will, on the right side. It really doesn't matter. You get to pick. It's your art, so you get to pick wherever your light source is. Pardon me. Now I'm going to come in with the brown and mix that with the dark brown here. And we're just slightly mixing here just to get the colors kind of into that white space a little bit. Just mixing here very gently in a circular motion. Like so. And now we're going to be using our water brush to pull that color into the rest of the white space that remains. And as you can see, you get some really pretty shading. All I'm doing here is pulling that color up. Pardon me guys, sorry about that. And there you have it. I think I'll put just a little bit of shadow on his face. I kind of missed shading that right part of his face. And I'll just use the brown on that, that's fine. I don't need to come in with both colors. And there you have it. There's just a quick little shading of this little puppy dog here. Doing some painting techniques with our zigs and a water brush. Super, super easy there. No magic to that at all. For the pumpkin, and I'll just do the base just to save time, but I use brown and orange. I really like that combo for orange. It just gives the orange kind of like a solid, nice base color to it instead of just being bright, super bright orange. So I just kind of scribbled some regular brown down, and then I'm coming in with the orange and mixing it together. And then of course the water brush will mix everything together, give us almost a third color in the lightest area. And that will give us some very, very nice shading here. Give my water brush a little squeeze here. If you ever find that your water brush just isn't moving the color like you want, it just means the tip's gotten a little dry and you just have to give it a squeeze. You always want to make sure your water brush is nice and full of water so you won't have to squeeze it as often. But even the fullest water brush sometimes needs a little bit of a squeeze. And so that's why I always keep paper towel right next to me here. And I can just go ahead and squeeze that water brush whenever I need to do so. All right, now let's see. We want to grab our black marker here because what we're going to do next is color the little witch's outfit. What is so fun about this stamp set is it's really like playing paper dolls, but for puppies. You get to dress them up in whatever outfit you want. And of course I chose this doggy right here to be my little witch. So I just put some black down as you saw. And that's the only color I use when I want something black, is I just use black. It's such a nice dark black color, and I find that using the water brush, I get this really nice shading to it, like so. Very easy to do with just one color marker. Now, for this cute little doggy right here, I used brown and light brown for him. So he's a little bit darker than our pumpkin puppy. So for him, I'm just going to put the darkest color first, which in this case is the brown. And I'm just going to come along here, put that marker down where I feel that the darkest sections of the puppy are going to be, and then come in with the light brown and mix it. Super easy to do. There we go. All right, and now our water brush will complete the process. I tell you, when you're using these zigs, the water brush really does all the work for you. It's awesome. Forgive me for turning the image. I just didn't want to get my head in the frame of the camera here. There you go. There's our cute little shaded puppy dogs. So to finish up just quickly, to color this little bucket, I did just do the orange on that bucket here. And then the hat was black with a little bit of purple on the band. And then the top of the pumpkin, of course, is the same, the brown and the orange with a little bit of dark brown for the stem. And I will have all of these colors on my blog. And I will have a link to my blog in the video, the description box rather, of this video. But I didn't want to take any more of your time since this video is already kind of long. So let me just pull this out quickly so you can see what we did here. Some cute, super fast coloring. And here's again what the finished card looks like. So there we have our cute little guy coming out of the pumpkin. Oh, he's just so cute. And then we have our little witch with a little treat bag. Here are our little embossed bones. Our happy Howloween from the stamp set, which I embossed with white, and I added a little paw at the end of the sentiment from the same stamp set. I thought that was a cute touch. And then of course we have everything over top of that starry night sky background, which I really love. And then as a finishing touch, I added these pretty pink posh gold sequins. Well, these are the confetti sequins. They don't have holes in the middle. And I just thought they would look really pretty in the night sky here. So that's it, guys. That is the finished card. I hope that you enjoyed this. Here is the night sky that we did on camera. It's starting to look really good. It's almost dry. So we'll be able to use that on another card in the future. Thank you guys so much as always for stopping by and for crafting with me today. And I will catch you in the next video. Thanks. Bye-bye.